All right, here we go. Hello and welcome to another installment of the Miskatonic AV Club, a Mythos Busters production. We're sneaking out a cheeky third tonight. I'm Sean, with me is Ian, and we're talking about Where Doom Awaits. So let's hop
Your
right into
favorite.
it. Yes, my favorite. Actually, I do generally like the player cards in this, as a small spoiler alert. So Ian, why don't you take the lead on the first card?
Sure. So the very first card is Leadership, which is a Guardian skill as the wild icon and the practice trait. While Leadership is committed to a skill test being performed by another investigator, Leadership gains a will and a wild icon. So two additional icons. And the art looks to be from a police officer confronting Bane on the steps of City Hall.
The villain we need, but not the one we deserve. What's
Hello,
with his
God.
voice? It's kind of weird. The leadership. This one's interesting. Solo, I think just straight up you don't play it, right?
Yeah, because it's just wild that you could spend something else on that slot.
So what that ultimately means is that you're playing this for its extra icons, which means you're playing it for another investigator. Which,
Yeah.
can work, but I don't see too many deck designs reliably relying on something like that, do you?
No, I don't. And I think the fact that I play mostly solo and two-handed is why I haven't used this much. Maybe in 3 or 4 player, and maybe in the future we're looking at a Guardian who is less fighting. I mean, probably still doing some fighting, but really is leaning hard on those support cards and is acting more
Charlie
like a
Kane.
yeah, like a Charlie Kane and Eldritch, exactly, who's focused on supporting other players. That would be good here. If I'm playing as Skids, I want someone to play. Give me a will and a two wilds.
Yeah, I think the main thing that limits this one is you just have to be hugging your other investigator so hard, right? Because you can't, under normal circumstances, there are obviously abilities that circumvent this general rule, but normally you can't commit this card unless you're at that investigator's location.
Yeah.
And I find in most of my multiplayer games, people are fanning out a fair amount. Like, there are times when we converge and we coordinate and we move together, but not enough that I feel good about having this card in my deck specifically for someone else.
Yeah. True enough. I it's not going in the garbage bin, but it's one I haven't used at all really for those reasons.
Agree. I think this one might be looking for the right investigator, but right now I just don't think it offers enough bang for the buck of its deck slot.
Yeah. Agreed.
So, Ian, I think we could argue on leadership that we've definitely had better. But have you?
Yeah. I've had worse is a Guardian event. Costs 0, but it's level 4. Two will icons rather, and one agility icon. Spirit traded, fast, play when you are dealt damage and or horror. Cancel up to 5 damage and or horror just dealt to you. Then gain that many resources. Hmm.
So the missing flavor text from this one is as we mentioned on the last episode. I ain't got time to bleed.
Yep, exactly. This is a good card.
It's such a good card.
This is one of the cards I definitely think about upgrading to at some point when I'm.
Yeah, Guardian, I think at this point has some pretty expensive cards, and for the most part lacks for consistent resource generation. Um,
Mhm.
it also is the class I think of any class that is just going to expect to take incoming damage and horror more often than anyone. So yeah, I this is actually a pretty like late early mid buy for most of my Guardians. Um,
Mhm.
because chances are if you're building to tackle enemies, you're just gonna want this card.
Yeah, the great thing is that it rolls two things together. If it just gave you the damage cancellation, it'd still be worth it at some cost. Maybe it'd be like 3 XP or something. But the fact that you get the resources too, it's such a swing from potential disaster losing the game to being right back on top of it.
Yeah. I'd say for a Guardian deck that has access to like 10 plus experience, this is a cornerstone Guardian.
For sure. Sure. And it I don't know, there's so many games that come down to kind of these slim margins of error where you're like one or two horror away from being defeated, and this can make that difference, having it in your back pocket.
Yeah, and we always talk about how precious an action is. Right? And one of the main things that enemies do is they make you decision to take an action that's not fighting, evading, resigning, or parlaying. They make that a very risky proposition because you have to take an attack of opportunity in order to do that.
Mm.
Or you have to, pump the actions into defeating the enemy. So I feel like in those really tense situations where, God, I'm just one action short from doing this important thing I need to do, all of a sudden having this card in your hand is like, well, this is a free attack of opportunity and I get resource. I get paid for it, yo. They're paying me for this shit.
Yep.
Good card.
I think it's good for all guardians, for sure. I think Zoe especially likes it because she's already gathering resources. So if you're kind of building your deck, take advantage of resources, say with something like Kenai or other expensive cards, this gives you more. And it has 2 will icons. So if you happen to be trying to leverage Zoe's will icons, maybe with some spells or something, then that can help.
When I think of the other Guardians we have, and again, peering slightly into the future at Mark, like both Roland and Mark have 5 sanity, and this is a great way to keep some horror off you. So, I just can't say enough good things about this card. It's perfectly worth it at the 4 XP, and I think it eventually ends up going at least one of in just about every blue deck I've been since it.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed.
Good. So I was trying to think of a fun segue for this one, but I'm coming up short, especially for the implications that this card had on so much theory crafting before it actually released. Ian, do you want to read the first version of our upgraded Strange Solution?
Sure. So this is Strange Solution Restorative Concoction. 1 cost, level 4, 2 will icons, item, and science traded. You can only include this asset in your deck by upgrading it from Strange Solution Undefined, and only if you have identified the solution in your campaign log. So that will be true of all these cards. Uses 4 supplies, action, spend 1 supply, heal 2 damage from an investigator at your location. Well,
So healing is a thing that sometimes needs to happen, right?
it
Seeker
is.
has access to medical texts.
Hmm.
I would argue is a pretty decent heal. It's unlimited as long as you have the actions to pour into it. You only heal 1, but that's all right. I don't know. I just do you use the restorative concoction very often?
No, I think as we look at these, we'll see one that I think is clearly the winner in terms of the best of the upgraded Strange Solutions, and it is not this one. The healing is nice. It gives you better value than other healing effects, like you mentioned, medical techs and first aid. They all kind of run with like a 1-for-1, so that's great. And you can do it from another investigator, but I don't know. I feel like campaigns we've had so far, I'm not hurting a ton for trying to heal damage. I'm more worried about healing horror.
Yeah. And the other thing is, not only is this the 4 XP, but it's the in-game inconvenience of identifying the solution mid-campaign, which, ideally you want a pretty big payoff for. I just think
No.
maybe in a partner deck for a guardian that's going to be taking an ass ton of damage, like, again, peering into the future, your marks. But even then, that's rough.
He's just rubbing it into his skin after a certain point.
Bathing in it. All right.
Yeah, in most cases, 4 XP now.
Yeah. So much work. Fairly middling effect. All right. So then moving on to the next incarnation. This is Acidic Echor. The difference is here. You still have to identify the solution. Has 2 combat icons, only 3 uses. However, action, spend 1 supply, fight, attack with a base combat skill of 6. This attack deals +2 damage.
Whew. Winner.
Sound of my mind blowing.
Yeah, I mentioned there was one that's the clear winner of the solution. This is the winner.
Looking at it.
Yep.
It fills a hole that the faction needs filling.
Mm-hmm.
It does it really well. Like, most weapons don't give +2 damage. Like, that's pretty big. You're hopping your combat up to 6, which on standard is a very good place to be. In most cases, you probably don't even need to commit anything else.
Yeah.
And again, peering into the future. Anything in the future that plays with supplies will play with this card, and there happens to be a pretty good combo for it. I don't know. This is a solid reason to include that strange solution in your level 0 deck.
Yeah, especially for solo. Maybe if you're running multi and you're not fighting and other people are fighting more, then maybe you're not worried about strange solution at all. But if you do have to do any fighting or you're playing solo, you need a good solution. That's, the other kind of seeker fight stuff tends to be events that are one time, and this at least gives you uses, and you get presumably put 2 in your deck. So give yourself more options consistently. And I like that it most other kind of quote unquote weapons boost your combat, and this just sets it to a base of 6 because it's the solution doing the fighting.
I am receiving a distress signal.
I like that flavor and the fact that it just sets it at the same for anyone who can take it. Yeah, this is kind of the seeker equivalent of some of the high XP weapons that we'll see coming in the next pack when we get to reviewing that. But the difference is this is only 1 cost, super cheap.
All the cost is in identifying this.
Yeah, and doesn't take up any slots, so it's easy to get on the board.
It's a good card. So rounding out the trio, then
we have Strange Solution, the freezing variant. Same stuff as before. The differences being 2 agility icons, which gives you an idea of where this is headed. As 4 supplies, 4 uses. Actions, spend 1 supply. Evade with a base agility skill of 6. Well.
So, as we discussed, a base value of 6 is generally pretty good. Got an extra supply. Given the option between the freezing variant and the acidic ichor, I'm hard pressed to come up with a compelling reason why there's not just one right answer to that question.
Yeah. I mean, you have the choice between the one that's going to fight and kill the enemy for good or the one that's going to temporarily evade it. Yeah, that's tough.
I mean, yeah, end of the day, there are some enemies with 4 or more hit points that the Ichor is not going to completely kill. But everything else it's killing.
Yeah, it's killing most things, so this would be best for like a boss that you really need to evade for some reason.
That's true. It does not say non-elite. Something to know.
so other enemies investigators can attack it. Maybe you're trying to evade it and turn off that retaliate keyword. Maybe you need to evade it for another reason. But in a lot of cases, it seems like there are better tools for that potentially, depending on what your investigator can access. And it's hard to pick this over the acidic ichor.
I mean, end of the day, that's what it's always going to come down to. Just that the
Yeah.
ichor is hard control for seekers who have almost no control at all for encounter cards. And then here's this freezing variant. Basically, the only thing you're getting is the extra charge, right? The extra supply.
Yeah.
For soft control, where you're fixing that problem for a turn or less sometimes.
I mean, technically, I guess you could take one of each, right? Is that how it works? So if you had two,
why would you
identified?
Why would you?
I'm trying to do some mental gymnastics here to make.
You're good. Stop backflipping. We're fine. The ichor is much better.
I feel like with freezing variants, I like the flavor. We should have gotten something evade E, but I feel like it shouldn't have just been evade. It should have been something where they like get held in place for a couple turns.
Yeah.
That could have been interesting.
Like Bind Monster or something like that. But I mean, that would be a lot of text on that card. So I think the only thing I will say that is counter to what we've said so far is if we start or continue to get more cards that interact with exhausted enemies specifically, then this becomes better.
Yeah, good point.
But it's going to take quite a bit before it hits the level of the acidic ichor. Goddamn. It's just so much better.
Yeah. If this had maybe been, I don't know, if it had been like fewer XP than the other ones or something. I feel like the acidic ichor should have been 4 XP and the other one should have been like 2 XP or something. Try to even it out a bit.
Agree. But hey, what are you going to do?
Yep.
You're going to miss. It's fine. So then, moving into the green cards, we have Joey the Rat Vigil looking out for number 1. So he is a level 0, 4-cost rogue asset, has an intellect and ability icon, ally and criminal traits. He takes up the ally slot, believe it or not. 3 health, 2 sanity. Fast action, spend a resource. Choose an item asset from your hand and play it. So, he's kind of. We haven't gotten to sleight of hand yet, but it's kind of that effect where you're. So okay, let's back it up. Ground level, what he's doing is he is allowing you to jump in, presumably a weapon, right? Because you're not going to bother to pay an extra resource for a flashlight, are you? Maybe you are to save the action. So he's saving you an action to play down an item. That's ultimately what it is at the cost of an ally slot, 4 resources to get him down, and another resource to spend his action.
Yeah.
What you think about Joey the Rat, Mr. Rogie Rogue?
Well, I like the idea behind it that he is saving those actions. And kind of the best use case, the best idea behind him is that he lets you put him on the board and then you're not worrying about putting any weapons down and you just go ahead with the game. And then when an enemy pops out, you can put down a weapon. So he saves you actions in the sense that a lot of times you might feel compelled to prepare for a scenario and spend those first couple turns putting stuff down. And instead, you can just get down to business and Joey will take care of what you need to take care of later. The problem is...
You know what you could do instead? Just play the friggin' weapon.
Yeah, you could do that.
At 4 cost with no stat boosts.
Or you could play Leo DeLuca for 2 more and get an extra action every turn for the rest of the game. Which is the biggest problem with Joey the Rat is almost every rogue ally is better than him.
Objectively.
So I think maybe in the future we might get if we just get a kind of a critical mass of items, and there are some cool items other than just straightforward weapons that might reward you for sneaking them in.
I'd still rather just play them than play a 4-cost ally for the chance of playing them later at an increased cost. No, I'm sorry. This guy's terrible.
Yeah.
I don't often fully shit on cards, but
Happy birthday, Tom less than 3.
Oh my god. It wouldn't be AV Club if we weren't getting interrupted by Tom's sound effect. That was fun.
I'd almost rather have an upgraded Joey that's like a slate on demand, where instead of paying for it, you're just getting it in and out and sneaking it in without paying resource cost.
Something.
Yeah. He does have good.
Spend a resource, put the item into play. No, spend a resource, exhaust Joey, put the item into play. When Joey leaves play, when Joey readies or leaves play, you have to return the item to your hand. Boom, done.
Yeah, something like that. Probably the best thing to say about him is he has good, beefy health and sanity.
How often do rogues lose by physical trauma, Ian?
Well, the only good Joey story I have is my Leo DeLuca got taken out of commission by Blood on the Altar. It's heartbreaking, and so I replaced him with Joey just on a whim, just the cheeky Joey the Rat. Like, okay, he's a soak if nothing else, which I might need it. And funny enough, in I think it was Where Doom Awaits, I was looking down the barrel of a Beyond the Veil, and I had Joey out, and also, God, who else did I have out? Oh, Dr. Morgan, the story asset with charisma, and they actually allowed me to tank a Beyond the Veil because Joey has 3 and Morgan has 4 or 5, whatever it is, 4, I believe. Yeah,
I would lay that more at the feet of Dr. Morgan than go to that, but
that's fair.
I appreciate that you're trying to defend him. I'm sorry. Where he's sitting right now, he is a terrible card. No one should play him. But I would be very interested to see maybe a leveled up version that does something else, does something a little bit more than what the current one.
Yeah, I want to like it. I like the idea behind it.
Yes, that's it.
But
it's a cool idea. I just think any ally in green is going to get you more than this dude.
Yeah.
You know. So I think it's safe to say that this card is not our ace in the hole. So it just so happens.
Oh, look at that. Ace in the Hole is a 0-cost rogue event, 3 XP, has the trick trait, exceptional. Again, reminder, that means it costs double, so it costs 6 XP and you can only have 1 in your deck. Fast, play only during your turn. You may take an additional 3 actions this.
What?
Yeah.
Hey, a wise man once said, actions are baller, yo.
Yeah. I love me some Ace in the Hole. It is often it's something I say often, but it's difficult a lot of times to find room for all these, or to find XP rather, for all these great leveled up rogue cards. Rogue kind of has an embarrassment of riches of high XP cards. Ace in the Hole and Lucky Dice and the Golden Pocket Watch. There's just so much to spend on. That's one reason why it's not just like as good as Ace in the Holes. It's not like always take it no matter what. It depends. But I'll say that I've never regretted taking an Ace in the Hole. Like, it just always does work. If it comes into your hand, you will find a reason to play it. I mean, it's 3 freaking free actions.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Actions are so good, and doesn't even remove itself from the game. So if in the future somehow we were able to recur a rogue event,
yeah, 0 cost, not costing you anything,
not invoking an attack of opportunity. It's just, if you can stomach that 6 XP, this is a good card.
Yeah, so I played it in a couple cases. It either is the ultimate, like, saving your ass in those situations where 3 actions are not enough. I used this recently, a Jenny play against Where Doom Awaits, actually. And
Wow.
so there was a moment in the end where you have to kind of face down a big climax moment, and I needed a lot of actions, did not have enough, but I happened to have ace in the hole and was able to do a whole boatload of stuff and win the scenario where without the card I would not have. And then the other situation is you just spend it on any humdrum turn just to get more actions, just so you get ahead of the agenda deck. Both are valid, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see any game ever where I'm going to balk at taking 3 extra actions, even if even if those extra actions amount to being nothing more than get 2 resources and draw a card, right? Like, it's good,
Yep.
but expensive.
Yeah, costs a lot of XP.
All right, and particularly good in a future rogue investigator that might be able to play it multiple times. Kind of ridiculous.
Oh man, if you get ace in the hole under her card. I think I need to go smoke a cigarette and come back.
The thought of it, wow.
Yeah.
All right, so then moving into dim purple cards, we have the card that was promised with all of the Doom play that Mystic has had in the past. So Moonlight Ritual is a level 0 Mystic event. It is cost 0 as well. It has an intellect and agility icon, spell, and insight traded. Remove all Doom from 1 card you control. So, as someone who plays a lot of Mystic, I've been very back and forth on the Doom play that Mystic has, right? Is there's so many cards that just kind of beg you, like, hey, press your luck, bro. You get some cool stuff out of it, bro. Just put a Doom on it, bro. It's gonna be fine, bro. And I think it's up to this point been a dicey thing to put too much of that in your deck. Like with some card strategies, you're like, I want to double down on this. Succeed by 2 or more mechanic, because if I put in it, more likely it is to trigger, the better it'll be. I feel like Doom is in the opposite direction, where Mystic has a lot of access to these things that add Doom to cards. I think in most builds, you just want to add like 1 or 2. You want to sprinkle that in. Kind of a cool bit of flair. But Moonlight Ritual allows you to get a little bit crazier with it. I feel like Moonlight Ritual really is what makes things like Blood Ritual that we saw in the last pack really work. There's an ally coming up in the Carcosa cycle who loves to stack Doom on him, and he's amazing when he does. Being able to play this card to kind of negate that cost is really solid. And I feel like the more Doom play we get in Mystic, and it seems like that's the thing that's just going to get continual development, the better this card gets. So situationally, awesome.
That's kind of where I'm at with it, where at first I was trying to use it in a lot of different Mystics or other investigators who can access it, and then I would end up cutting it because I wasn't using it much. Because I think you're right that it's more so something that you use very intentionally in combination with other cards. Say in Alyssa Graham, which we looked at last pack, maybe you're all about using that ability over and over and putting stuff at the bottom of the encounter deck that's really bad, and then you have Moonlight Ritual to take that all off, or a very Blood Pact heavy build where you're going to use that a lot. Someone like Marie, for those who don't have Marie and are unfamiliar, when she has a Doom on a card she controls, then she gets another action. Is it to use a spell now?
Use or play spells, yeah.
To use or play a spell. So she's another one where she wants control of the Doom stuff she has. Night Ritual is great for Marie, I think. But if you're just like rolling with like, oh, I have an Arcane Initiate, like you just kill the thing, right? Like you don't need a whole separate Moonlight Ritual card to deal with that.
Yep. This is one I just feel like it's a good idea to keep an eye on. It's pretty good now in specific builds, but the more Doom we get, the more attractive this one gets as a splash to make those costs. So I'm really glad this one exists. And the fact that it's a spell means that it's just easier to find in purple. Yes, we have our Heirlooms of Hyperborea things along.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so since it is a spell, that's right. Since Marie can play a spell for free, she would actually play this for free with a doom to get rid of the doom.
yep. And Agnes draws a card off of it if her signature is in play. If for some reason you decided it was a better tactical idea to play her signature down rather than just chuck it for willpower icon, which I'm sure it's happened to someone at some point. All right, moving on to the next one. Ian, are you okay? Can you read this next one?
Yes, I am fearless, which is my new pop star album that I will be coming out soon.
That art is album cover worthy, isn't it?
For sure. This is a level 2 mystic skill with 2 will icons, innate and develop traded. If this skill test was successful, heal 1 horror. Familiar? But 2 horror instead if it succeeds by 2 or more. All right. So that gives you another will icon. And it gives you the option to heal 2 horror instead of 1.
So, if you're Mystic, you generally have a lot of willpower tests. That's a thing that just kind of happens. And I think a lot of the Mystic cards kind of they're off, they're byproduct, they're side effects. Ask your doctor if Mystic is right for you. Tends to be horror. So this nice little boost to, like, I feel like this slots in where a Guts might have gone before pretty easily.
Yeah. I think it comes down to asking yourself, how much is your Mystic taking horror? How much do you anticipate they'll taking horror? Someone like Agnes, like, this is kind of a no-brainer. Like, she definitely needs that. Maybe you're running a different Mystic. Maybe you're running a Jim saying you're not seeing him take a lot of horror. Or an Akachi has a big pool of horror and you don't need it, then you don't slot it. But I don't know. It's like you said, it can replace the Guts, and the campaigns we have do tend to put a lot of pressure on horror. So
yeah,
it's worth thinking about at least.
Definitely worth considering. And succeeding by 2 or more, as long as you're careful about when you throw this, it's not that hard. Pretty consistent, especially for your Agneses in the future, your Akachis who start at a 5. Most willpower tests ain't that. I like Fearless. It's good. Though maybe, arguably, depending on your investigator, maybe not as good as the Jewel of Aureolus. Areolus?
Sure.
Areola? The Jewel of Areola? The jewel with the alien stuck inside.
I've never noticed that until now. Like,
you're welcome.
Is there an alien in there?
Yep. The first time I looked at it, I'm like, why are men from Mars stuck in these jewels? And anyway, it's the gift of the homunculi. It's a 3-cost, level 3 mystic asset. It has 1 wild icon. It is an item and relic and takes up the accessory slot. Reaction: after a bad stuff token is revealed during a skill test at your location, exhaust the Jewel of Areolus, draw a card, or gain. So the Chaos Bag's a thing. And it has lots of bad stuff tokens in it, generally. Particularly your standalone scenarios, to have a fair few bad stuff tokens. If you're a single player, chances are you're going to see those a few times per game. And if you're multiplayer, you're probably going to see them even more. I'm generally positive at least on a 1-of copy of the Jewel.
I definitely, it's the Jewel is in solo, maybe at the least, like, you're just gonna grab it because just less tokens are being revealed, so there's fewer chances of it activating. But even then, the bad stuff tokens are just gonna happen. Someone did the math, the averages of how many bad stuff tokens you see per game. it's quite a few, and you have to think about how many times does it need to activate to make it worth it. And I don't think that many times. Like you're gaining the flexibility of either a card or resources on
always
demand.
good to see your kind.
Even at the minimum of 2-player, I've used this. I included this in Gym, and it was really good. Well, Gym specifically too, because if the Elder Sign went off, I could turn it into a skull and then activate it. So
Oh man, and if you're playing around with grotesque statues in Gym, which you generally should be, just being able to be like, okay, specifically I picked this token because reasons. It gives you a cool choice. I don't know. Generally pretty positive on this card.
Yeah, I like it. It does give you a reason in multiplayer to hang around the other investigators. Come back
if you didn't need one before,
and then pray for them to reveal something bad. I was playing at the Invocation event with Norman, future investigator Norman, and completed a jewel with him. And yeah, I remember someone drew like something bad, like a cultist or elder thing, and I let out an audible yes.
Yeah. Yep, that seems about right. Mystic, the only class in the game that's gonna hope for the Chaos Bag to win occasionally.
Yeah.
I got you a doll.
So
No,
it's
I
good.
only
It's,
got 10
definitely
cents.
worth thinking about, and can fund some resources.
We're getting more sound effects from the Tom Twitch stream. I'm still wondering like how the stars aligned that we haven't twitched in a year. We happen to be twitching at the same time Tom is, and we can't figure out why his sound effects bleed through.
What are the odds?
I would argue that it was a chance encounter with his sound effects, though. That's all I got. I'm getting lazy.
All right, so chance encounter is 1 cost survivor event, 1 will icon, 1 intellect icon, fortune traded, which means our friend Rex. Choose an ally asset in any player's discard pile. Put that asset into play under your control. At the end of the round, if that asset is still in play, discard it.
Yeah.
So a combination sneak attack, stand and fight for you Lord of the Rings players.
Frank. So this is one I've played around with. I don't know about. Generally, the only time I care about this card is when I know I'm gonna have a target that has a when enters play effect on that ally.
Yeah.
Because this costs you an action to play. So at best, if you're pulling an ally out of someone else's discard pile to use for a turn, and you're hoping for like a stat boost or something, at best you're getting 2 uses out of that ally.
Yeah.
Which, can be worth it, but I feel like it makes it more marginal. But when you're using this to pull out a art student or a laboratory assistant, or dare I say, a red-gloved man,
yeah.
then all of a sudden that one resource and an action becomes far more worth it because you're getting clue, you're getting cards, in addition to getting that ally on your turn, which presumably if you've got an enemy or something, you let it attack it and let it die because it's going away anyway. But I think for the most part, this is not a general use card. When I include this card, I have a specific target in mind to use.
Yeah, agreed. I think this is either kind of 2 situations you'd use it. Either like you're saying that you're building very specifically for like the kind of recurring. Someone came up with a clever name for this, but where you're recurring all the educationally connected allies like art student and laboratory assistant, and recurring them. Chance encounters.
Turn them in Burnham Academia.
Yeah, is good for that. Min, future investigator Min, who can take Seeker and Survivors, obviously ideal for that. I think the other case would be maybe a 4-player game. You just include maybe 1 copy of this just as a utility toolbox. Like with that many players, someone's gonna have an ally in their discard pile somewhere, and then you be able to take stuff off the scrap heap of other players. And
Yep. I guess I don't have much else to say in that regard.
yeah, just kind of one of those cards you're glad exists because it will have uses. Will have more as the card pool. We get more allies with kind of enters play effect.
I have detected
or
an
I
anomaly.
suppose in kind of symmetry there, anything that has a when leaves play effect is probably going to be pretty okay for this too.
Yeah,
This does both.
Yeah.
I am
Is
receiving
Brother
a
Xavier
distress signal.
destroyed or leaves play? I need to. Brother Xavier, where are you? He is defeated, so that would not.
Damn it. Almost cool. Almost cool.
Almost.
Probably well balanced to have it work that way, though.
Oh, that would be such a damage bomb if
Yes.
we meant.
All right. So moving on to the next one. Stroke of Luck is a level 2 survivor skill. It has a wild icon. It is innate and fortune traded. Commit only to a skill test you're performing. After revealing chaos tokens for this test, you may choose to exile Stroke of Luck.
I have detected an anomaly.
If you do, this test is automatically successful unless a tentacle token was revealed. So basically, I mean, what is this fighting? I feel like this is maybe a hard and expert mode to hit those important tests. It can't cancel the tentacle, which is kind of what you really want a card like this to do, right? As a guaranteed success. Nothing is ever guaranteed in Arkham. But, you know, as a wild icon, I feel like this is okay as maybe a one of, and just make sure that when you've got this in your hand, you're as near a guaranteed success as you can be in Arkham.
Yeah, I like Stroke of Luck for it does provide that kind of insurance policy you're talking about, and especially on harder difficulties. It's also a way of passing certain checks without needing to bump at all. Like you can go into it just thinking, I'm going to exile this thing. Like maybe I'm going like combat against a 5 attack enemy or 2 intellect against a 4 shroud location or whatever. And I know I'm going to succeed no matter what, as long as I don't draw a tentacle. And so Stroke of Luck can help in that. It's kind of like a auto succeed against tests without having to spend cards like committing icons or spending resources to bump up your skill or whatever.
Yeah. And I mean, at the very least, this is a wild icon.
Yeah.
If you succeed the test, great. You don't have to exile it. It remains in your deck for a later use. You what's nice is you get to decide after the chaos token is. So this is just a wild icon in your deck. You don't even have to worry about the rest of its text until you're about to fail that test. Then you get to be like, do I though? Do I in counter deck fail this test?
Yeah.
I mean, but at 2 XP, essentially, as a cost, if we're looking at exiling it, that's not nothing.
Oh.
It's got to be an important test for me to even look at that.
I, in the course of campaigns, use this, and where Doom awaits the very scenario it comes up in to pass some important investigate tests. Because I deem those important enough to use it on. Just to save time.
And, of course, looking into the future, in Min, this is an unexpected courage that you can exile to automatically succeed. That's all right.
Someone needs to do a min counter of how many times we've mentioned her in the past 3 reviews.
Every time we review a skill card, essentially.
I mean, she just changes the entire way you look at cards, so yeah.
All right. So, God, I don't know. This next card, it's a thing. Though I do feel like the art for this one was rendered in last generation's graphics engine.
Like Lawnmower Man.
No, this is still on Unreal 3, and the rest of the world has moved on.
Is this mine?
I think so.
Okay, Fine Clothes is a one-cost neutral asset, item in clothing traded, agility icon. Reduce the difficulty of skill tests you perform during parlay actions by 2. There's nothing quite like the feel of silk against your skin. Takes up the body slot, 1 health, 1 cent.
Okay, so this is a card that is one cost, 1 for the body slot. Its text is blank. Do you consider it for a deck? Like, to me, 1 cost for either damage or horror, that's not bad in most investigators, especially if you've got an investigator that's got kind of a weak stat.
It's not bad.
Then taking into account the parlay thing, what was funny about this card is I was kind of middling on it when it first came out, because at that time parlay was intensely prevalent or important in most scenarios. You got the core campaign trying to get Lita. So I was like, oh, it's an alright one of for those investigators who maybe need that little extra sanity or health boost. But I have since come around to this card in the Carcosa cycle specifically, because there is a keystone I suppose scenario where parlay is the thing you do. So maybe that to me says, I don't know how we're going to feel about it next cycle, but this is kind of a per cycle, like, this is another one of those cards where in the right situation it is the clutch card, and in every time else.
Yeah, exactly. It's never going to be, I don't foresee us ever having a cycle where like every scenario has parlay. So it's always going to be a bit hit or miss. Some scenarios you're not going to use it at all, except for as a soak, and some it's going to like literally save the whole scenario for you. And again, also cycle dependent, like you said. So Carcosa is clutch without spoiling too much, whereas Dunwich, didn't really use it that much. It was all right. And who knows, Forgotten Age in the next cycle, which at the time of recording hasn't come out yet, but I don't know how much parlaying we're going to be doing in the jungle, but we'll see. So yeah, it's the ultimate just kind of
Clutch flex
scenario
card.
dependent card. Yeah.
I think this is one of the better examples we have as to why Rogue has an amazing ability in adaptable. Because, any campaign that has any parlay act can take adaptable after the first scenario, presuming you get any experience. And then you just swap this card in when you need it.
Yeah.
Being able to metagame a scenario and just knowing when you're going to need important parlay tests just makes this card so good. I don't think it's a general purpose all comers that goes in every deck kind of card.
Well, that's part of the thing. Like, if you know ahead of time what a scenario has, then I think the decision making behind close is pretty easy.
Mm-hmm.
You can include it when you need it. When you're upgrading, you can take it out if you know the scenarios ahead don't really need it. But if you're going in blind, you always just take along 1 copy of Fine Clothes, or how do you approach like a blind?
Well, a blind run through for me tends to be kind of building on past campaigns. But yes, I think if we're talking about like the first time I play through anything, one of is not a bad way to go. At the end of the day, if you don't have any parlay to use it on, it's a 1/1 soak. For a lot of investigators, this is kind of a de facto feint that you just play ahead of time.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's one that I'm like, oh, unexpected courage, quiche, Fine Clothes. Like, it's not at that level.
Yeah. It could be investigator dependent too. I feel like almost every parlay test we've had, if not all of them, have been either intellect or will. And so maybe if you have an intellect or will investigator is very strong in those two, say your seekers that have higher ed access, maybe Fine Clothes is not as necessary as if you're a little bit weaker in will and intellect. Maybe you want to make sure you have those clothes around if you don't know what's.
Yeah, so Fine Clothes. When you know you need them, they're amazing. All right, let's round it out with a moment of respite. The Moment of Respite is a level 3 neutral event. It costs 3 resources. It has 2 willpower icons. It has the Spirit trait. And play only if there are no enemies at your location. Heal 3 horror and draw a card. This is one when it was previewed. I think I was more positive on it than when it actually released. Pretty meh on this card. Like, if horror is something you're worried about, you could also take the Elder Sign Amulet out of the core, which ultimately soaks more horror for you. Costs less XP and fewer resources. There's probably the odd investigator where this replaces a copy of Guts. Your Rolands, your Marks, whoever it happens to be, really kind of worried about horror and to take it. But for the most part, I don't know. Like, this card has not made it into very many decks of mine.
Yeah, I can only think of one time where I've upgraded to it, and now I'm trying to remember what deck it was. I'm pretty sure it was a Guardian. It might have been Roland or Zoe or someone who had, or maybe it was even a Jenny that had taken like 2 trauma or something. So if anything, I think it's kind of a mid-campaign adjustment card, like I'm rolling with 2 mental trauma or something, and I really want some extra insurance to get that horror off right away and draw a card, or just give me some breathing room. But depending on investigator, like you said, you might have some other options. Like if you're running Guardian, you might just want to spend 2 more and get Brother Xavier and have that 3 horror soak and an amazing ally. Or
And it costs
I
you
don't know.
2 fewer experience. Like,
Right.
if this were 2 and 2, this would be a crazy playable card. But the fact that it's 3 experience and 3 cost, it narrows the usable windows where I'm glad I have this in hand.
Yeah. It's the good thing about it is it's neutral, so it always potentially have use in the future. Uh, and the difference between soaking and healing is usually they're roughly equivalent, but if there's a scenario that's really punishing you for the amount of sanity you have left, then in those cases it might be better to heal it versus soaking it. Because presumably you get some, if you don't get your soak out in time, you might soak up a bunch of horror, and then later on you get your soak out, but you still have that horror on your investigator. The rest will actually get it off. But I'm kind of splitting hairs at this point. It's not a bad card. It's just something that other cards class.
Yeah, I mean that's see, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because one thing I really like about this game is kind of 30-ish card deck at 2 copies kind of allows you a little bit more leeway in including cheeky one-ofs or seeing cards more consistently. But at the same time, there are only 30 cards that can go in your deck, most decks. And those are pretty precious slots, so most of the time, if I'm even slightly unsure that a card's going to be useful, or is too situational, or even too expensive, I think all of which this card could kind of get into, it just makes me go, nope, sorry.
Someone who this might be good for is Skids with 2 will icons, and also because he has low will, he's constantly taking horror. So even though you might have other soaks available to him, like Brother Xavier, it may be a case where you need even additional soaks on top of that.
Yeah, I could definitely see this replacing a Guts in the Skids deck, or
yeah, we haven't
a
talked
Liquid Courage, maybe.
About the fact it draws a card, which is nice. So
is nice.
Essentially, you're replacing spending an action to draw a card with spending an action and healing 3 horror at the same time. So
Yeah, I agree. I think this one more consistently is going to be like a mid-campaign correction card when your sanity threshold has just gone awry. It's a nice way to hedge against that.
yeah.
All right. Well, that rounds out the pack. Ian, how are you feeling on this pack as a whole?
Well, a good chunk of the pack is taken up with the strange solutions. Um, but other than that, I think, like the previous pack, it's another one where there's a bit of up and downs. I think it might be a little bit better than the Undimensioned pack in terms of the overall quality. The ones that are more marginal are really Joey the Rat and potentially Leadership, depending on player count, are kind of pulling down the pack a little bit. Um, but yeah, I've had worse, which is a really bomb card. Ace in the Hole as well. I think both Fearless and Moonlight Ritual are kind of good foundational cards for Mystic.
And let's not discount the Jewel.
And the
does
Jewel
things.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this pack as a whole is like a solid 6 or 7. Got some really high highs, but it has a couple low lows. All right. Well, I think that's probably going to wrap it up for our Blitz push into the AV Club today. Hopefully we'll have these up in short order. So if you are desperately looking for more content from Mythos Busters and you haven't already, and I don't know why, but if you haven't, check out our regular podcast at Mythos Busters. You know what? We've done our plugs on the last episodes. I feel like we're fine to be a bit lazy. Check out our Facebook. Check out our YouTube and Twitch channels. We've got our Mythos Busters hotline where you can leave a question, comment, discussion topic at 203-493-MYTH, 203-496-984. And that's it, I think. We'll wrap it up for this episode 16 or 17. I've lost count now of the Miskatonic AV Club. We'll see you guys.